First, there is not one hint of historical evidence that Samson or Delilah ever existed. Secondly, the tremendous feats attributed to Samson are so bizarre that any intelligent reader will recognize this story as nothing more than a myth or a fable.
The feats that Samson performed are well within human capability. There are many demonstrations of strength performed by modern strongmen that could well rival Samson.
Research has shown that the story of Samson and Delilah has no basis in reality. The name Samson is not Hebrew and is directly traceable to a Canaanite sun god who is superhumanly strong. This story of Samson and Delilah is an old pagan legend dressed up in biblical trappings.
The name Shimson or Samson is derived from the Hebrew word shemish, which means sun or brightness. The name Samson is not uncommon, as it's found in the Ugaritic texts as early as 1500 BC, hundreds of years before Samson.
Samson is an outrageous character in a biblical morality play. There's not one piece of archaeological evidence that the Samson and Delilah story ever happened, or that the biblical towns mentioned in reference to this story ever existed.
Archaeological investigations in southern Palestine have identified 4 of the 5 primary Philistine cities: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Ekron. Only the location of Gath is unsure. Zorah, the birthplace of Samson, and Timnah in the plain of Sorek, the home of Delilah, also have been identified. Our excavation at Timnah, which began 15 years ago, has exposed 12 occupational layers. Timnah was built and destroyed repeatedly during its 1400 years of history. The period of Samson and Delilah is identified with the Philistine expansion into the Sorek plain, probably from Ekron, only 4 miles to the west. On the destruction debris of a large, wealthy Canaanite house, possibly the home of the local king, we exposed evidence of the Philistine arrival. A replastered floor contained this distinctive Philistine pottery. Our excavation exposed the Philistine town with its pottery, beer jugs, and an official stamped seal, all coming from the period when Samson walked the streets of Timnah.
Samson's story is just a long string of unbelievable yarns about his supposedly supernatural strength. He tore a lion apart with his bare hands, but then so did Hercules. The ability to kill ferocious animals barehandedly was characteristic of almost all heroes in the strongman myths of ancient times.
There are many well-documented feats of strongmen on record. There are thousands of modern accounts of even ordinary people performing superhuman feats of strength. Many circuses around the world feature tumbling acts where the bottom man supports the weight of 6 or more people, often between 1,200 and 1,500 pounds. And in karate, there are a great number of experts who can break concrete blocks, even destroy buildings.
If Samson really ever existed, he would have been a minor inconvenience to the Philistines. One man would not have made much difference, either in a political sense or a military one.
The history of the human race is full of incidents where one man impacted society massively. Alexander, Napoleon, Hitler. Samson probably was the Philistines' biggest problem at that time.
Judges 15:15 clearly says that Samson killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. But according to the mythology of other nations of biblical times, Hercules and other strongman heroes did similar feats, defeating entire armies and such like single-handedly. Now, if Samson had killed 20 or even 10 of 1,000 men rushing to overwhelm him, that would have been remarkable enough, but the whole 1,000 is just too ridiculous to believe.
The Hebrew word Eleph was mistranslated as 1,000. In the time of Samson, an Eleph meant a number between 20 and 30.
First, Samson was a man of abnormal strength. Secondly, the jawbone of a donkey is a formidable weapon in the hands of a determined man. And if the misconstrued term Eleph is correctly used, Samson killed 20-some of the despised Philistine soldiers, a considerable feat, but not an impossible or even an improbable one. The battle is a matter of historical record, and even today, this battlefield is still called Remeth Levi, meaning the wielding of the jawbone.
The introduction of Delilah into the Samson story is a typical soap opera device. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a femme fatale shows up. Even her name is questionable. More than likely, the name was concocted by the pre-scribes who wrote these yarns.
While Delilah is neither a Hebrew nor Philistine name, it is definitely Semitic, probably Canaanite in origin, perhaps from Tyre or Sidon. This name Delilah has different meanings, one being with long hair hanging down.
From a historical viewpoint, the 5,500 pieces of silver the Philistines offered Delilah as a bribe is really difficult to believe. Nowhere else in the Bible is such a vast amount of money offered for betrayal. Compare the meager 30 pieces of silver that was offered to Judas Iscariot to betray Jesus.
The pieces of silver of the Old Testament period, such as in Samson's time, were actually lumps of silver like this one. Although they were not coins, they were called shekels. These shekels were used for trade and barter throughout the Mediterranean world. 5,500 of these would have weighed about 150 pounds, probably worth about $10,000, a vast sum when considering their pre-inflationary value. This was indeed a vast fortune, suggesting that Samson was now regarded as a national menace.
These stone temples were meant to last through the ages. The pillars of these temples were engineered to carry tons of weight from the roof. It would have taken thousands of pounds of horsepower to pull one of these pillars from under its load. The idea of one man, Samson, doing it is totally unbelievable.
Archaeological excavations at Tel Kasila, here at the Eretz Israel Museum at Tel Aviv, give us a rather different picture of Philistine temples than that we've gotten from Hollywood. Displays and the model of the reconstructed temple are here in the museum. And this will surprise many people. The pillars were made of cedar wood and not stone. They just rested on this stone basis.
These new discoveries about the ancient temples caused us to seek out experts in architectural engineering.
Here in our computer lab, we have built an architectural model of the Philistine temple mentioned in the biblical story of Samson. It is based on the archaeological findings at Tel Kasila. You can see that it is not constructed along the lines of the later Greek temples, such as the Parthenon. It is considerably simpler, both in its engineering and its construction. These two central pillars support the center of the roof's construction and carry the entire vertical load. These wooden pillars, located 6 feet apart, whose bottom ends rested on flat stones, were the weakest points of the whole construction. It would not take very much force to displace the top ends of these pillars. You wouldn't need much of a displacement to cause a twisting movement in the roof structure, which would further displace the pillars and the whole roof would collapse. The added weight and movement of people would create another dynamic, making the entire structure unstable. We can now see Samson in our three-dimensional model. For clarity, we have removed most of the people and will have Samson push the pillars as the Bible describes, destroying the temple. Our structural engineers have calculated that this pushing action would have taken about 150 to 250 pounds of pressure to collapse the temple. A very strong man like Samson, with his motivation, could have easily collapsed the temple, killing the people inside and on the roof.